Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
Welcome to the dungeon. It's got my colourful felt in the background there to absorb the noise, so nobody will hear you screaming. And let's introduce you guys. So I'm going to say you guys are from Terra Maintenance, and you can introduce yourselves.
Oh, you might as well start.
So I'm Jesse. I'm 19. This is Harrison.
Yeah, I'm Jesse's brother. I'm 23. We're from Melbourne, Victoria, so southeast suburbs. And yeah, we're quite green to the business, but we've
Been operating for 14 months.
12 to 14 months, yeah.
Yeah, so southeast Melbourne, you would have listened to a few of my other episodes. Who do you know from people you've listened to?
Well, Jesse Winter is between us and the gym I go to in Bayswater, so he's around about a 20-minute or 15 to 20-minute drive from me or us. So I'd love to get in contact with him eventually, but I haven't. I'm not sure of any others that have been Melbourne. I know there was a few in like Frankston area or Mornington that you've interviewed.
I have no idea geographically with Melbourne because I don't live there. I go through there once every now and then. But I've got no idea. So I know Simon Turterharder. He's down further south, I think.
He was what was he in Rosebud? Who was in Rosebud? There was a dealer, scout dealer.
Yeah, Will Harford.
Yeah, he's in Rosebud. He's right down the bottom, and we're here. There's the Mornington Peninsula along here, and the city's up here. He's all the way down here.
Yeah, and I think Turtle was somewhere down towards him.
Yeah, I think they've more been out towards the beach line. We're a bit more inland.
Yeah, okay.
So,
yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, there's been a few others in Melbourne, but geographically I got no idea where anyone is.
Yeah, well, the closest person to us is Jesse Winter.
I wouldn't call it a mocha because it's more chocolate than coffee. But, yeah, nice and refreshing after a hard day out there standing on the ride-on, running around.
Is that the Cox?
The right.
The right, that's it. Not bad.
All good.
I thought they were the same for some reason.
Well, they're the same colour, aren't they?
Yeah.
So Cox distribute the right, and what they've done is they only bring in the right standards. They don't bring in their sit-down ones, but the Cox have their own yellow sit-down zero turn.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, that's probably why I thought that was.
So that means you can stand on a right, but you sit on a Cox.
Perfect.
Yeah. It is.
That all makes sense.
That'll sway us towards buying the Cox then. Hey?
Well, I've been told with good authority that the Cox is very durable. So you get the Cox heavy duty, and nothing will stop it.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
I wonder if they do demos.
High quality springs on the seat for that extra suspension.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Well, what's your opinion on the Hustlers? I know that
Hustlers have been really good machines. They built their reputation in Australia on the back of grip ski. Let's take a break while I tell you about the right standards. I've been running the ZK61 and the Stander i42, and these machines are built and spec'd with 100% heavy-duty commercial components. This saves your team time and money, season after season. It comes down to what sort of support you get, and I would hope that with the Hustler that they're going to provide good backup and support in Australia, but it's too soon at the moment to know.
Yeah, we've yet to hear anything negative about them specifically, but I mean, we're very new to it as well, so it's just a matter of time. time and seeing stress testing and seeing what we can get
I
out
looked
of it.
at Hustler probably almost 10 years ago. And at that point in time, you could buy a fast track heavy duty, which was the baseline for commercial machines in their range. So you go from the fast track heavy duty up to I think it's the X1, and then the next models up from that, which are all getting into the bigger machines. And back then, the fast track heavy duty was a pretty good machine, but I was like, no, I think I want the X1. And I didn't end up buying a Hustler because the dealer that was previously, before it was owned by Tinks, it was Newcastle Chainsaws and Mowers, and the guy was an absolute jerk. So I went in there to buy a Hustler, and he tried to sell me a Toro, and I'm like, I don't want the Toro. I want the Hustler. And I just ended up walking out and went and bought a Walker instead.
There you go. It's funny that
walk it out.
Yeah, walked out. It's funny the difference it makes for a salesman, like their approach and how they sell you on the product.
Yeah.
Like
we have our one we dislike.
Yeah, we've had a few interactions that have sort of swayed us, regardless of the product, away or toward. Yeah, like just the personality makes a massive difference with sales. I mean,
yeah, I've got so many experiences like that over the years because I'm approaching 14 years in the industry now. And yeah, so many shops have been terrible with their salespeople.
Yeah.
Well,
you can tell. You can just.
Do you want to tell the story?
Oh well, yeah. So, I mean, like, it's up to you if you want to put this in the recording or not. But
put it in.
We went to sort of shop around. I don't know what we were looking for. It was probably some battery gear. So we'll talk about that later. But there's a local shop of ours, which is maybe 15 minutes drive from where we live. And we're looking around. Just still outlet. And we're looking around, just exploring some options. And this salesman in this particular still just sort of gave that vibe. He just really couldn't care less. And so we're looking, I think we were just asking a few questions, and the responses we were getting were something along the lines of, they, basically does this, like obvious sort of answers to what we thought were genuine questions, but he made them out to be stupid questions.
Yeah.
I was talking about the battery blowers with the still, and I said, well, I'm aware that the battery blowers take up a lot of juice as opposed to the other stuff. So we're aware of that. Like, we know that by getting into it, we know that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, well, like almost saying, it's like, yeah, well, I know that. Like, why are you telling me this? It's like, yeah, well, we're informing you that we know of this situation if it were to occur. So we're not going to complain about it. But then I was walking around and I took extra notice of the chipper.
Yeah, there was a chipper on the floor. I think it's a 70 mil diameter. We were looking at it because we're trying to figure out a way to bring our green waste removal down, and that would have been a good solution just to get through some stuff. But despite that, we were looking at it, and I asked him a few questions about that, and I said, 70 mil, that's the diameter for the max cut, isn't it? And he goes, yeah, it is. And then we sort of stood in silence for a second, and I was looking at it, and then out of the blue, he goes, basically, fold your dick 3 times. That's the diameter you get when you put your product through the chipper. And I think we're just standing there, we just sort of mellowed, like we just sort of sat and stood in silence with it for maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And then the vibe was very different after that, and we sort of just left, like, we're never going back there again, because he just really wasn't a good salesman.
It's not how you sell a product.
I can see what went wrong there. I can see exactly what went wrong. He saw, and I'm going to practice this, but it's Jesse that's got the moustache, right?
Yes.
Yep. Jesse, that moustache is why he started talking about dicks.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Boy. Yeah, salesmen make or break stuff like that, and it's a shame because so many shops you go into and you just get story after story like that where the salesman couldn't care less about making the sale. And it's like, it doesn't take a lot of effort to build that rapport and to be able to sell a machine. Like you can get a sense of whether somebody is already ready to buy a machine or whether they are tire kicking or what the situation is as a salesperson. You can then gauge how you're going to handle that. And always, as a salesperson, you want to get the sale. So regardless of what you think the other person's doing, you're still going to be polite and courteous to them. And
of course, yeah.
that was the opposite of my experience going into the Hustler store, and the guy did not pick up on the fact that I was ready to buy a Hustler. I had $10,000 ready to go.
Yeah.
And
it'd be a layup for someone like that.
He didn't have to do anything. All we had to do was go, okay, yeah, which one? Let's get this happening as soon as possible. And if he'd said, get this happening as soon as possible, that would have been music to my ears.
Yeah, 100%. I think the biggest role that salesmen like that need to play to just be successful is just reduce the friction.
Yeah.
And from your account, that just sounds like he's just added more friction to the sale, and it just makes it a nightmare. Yeah, it doesn't make it easy for the customer by any means, and drives us away.
Yeah.
So yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
It seems really obvious now, but I've been told afterwards that he was very motivated by his Toro account. So he was going to do a whole lot better if he sold me a Toro than selling me a Hustler.
Oh, okay. But then that's a selfish, like, I feel like that's a selfish reason as well. Yeah, it's very
biased.
Well, it's not biased, but it is more selfish because he's going to get more out of
conflict of interest.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I went in there to buy a Hustler. I had $10,000. I was going to buy a Hustler. I walked out of there saying Toros are stupid and I'm not buying a Hustler.
Yeah. No, I definitely think it's an interesting aspect. Especially with contractors like us, is just the trust is a massive thing between contractors and salesmen, and it you know, I mean, you're there to spend money. You're not there to you crack a few jokes, but
if you got rapport, it's fine. Like if the guy we go to now had a joke like that, we'd be like, oh yeah, right, mate. Like fucking funny, but like we've got that rapport now, and it's like we didn't know this guy at all from a bar of soap, and we didn't have that rapport yet. So
yeah, that's it. Yes, it's an interesting topic. We could talk about that forever, but if you listen to old episodes of the podcast, check out the recent episodes with Dan, the mowing mentor, and Prez Madley with the corporate secrets that they won't tell you. Or search for my accountants Adrian and Charles from Grow Up Group to round out the great advice. And they will all help you when you contact them. Look up Dan, the mowing mentor on Instagram, Prez Madley by email, thinktankcoaching@outlook.com, or you can book an appointment with my accountants on 0249 773363. So let's give people a bit more insight into your background. So 19 and 23, you've been in business for about 14 months and you've got multiple arms of the business going. Am I hitting the right thing there in terms of saying you got a cleaning arm as well as the lawn maintenance gardening?
Yeah, we do. So we predominantly do the gardening side of things. It's mainly lawns and property maintenance, and the cleaning. It's specifically commercial cleaning, but it's a subject of quiet period and just trying to figure out the best way to keep the ball rolling. Yeah, just to give us a bit of support. So we found an opportunity there.
I guess it's a good place to start with Caleb. Like how we started is pretty much how we started, and that's how we got into commercial cleaning.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you can tell a little bit about.
So I had a mentor. I worked for since I was around about 15. I was doing cash work for him, pressure washing roof tiles and stuff, and he was building a big house. And eventually he got me onto big Hustler. It was like a 52, maybe 58 inch Hustler, and I was doing his lawns every week And eventually I was picking up sticks around his property and mulching and everything. He had around about 32 acres. And just getting paid cash, like $20 an hour, eventually 25. And then 3 or 4 years down the track, we got to 30. But he had a massive commercial cleaning business. So he'd take me on to clean display homes and all these kind of things and cook, what's it called?
Krispy Kremes.
Krispy Kremes. So I'd do all the cleaning. And then me and Harrison, after a big storm, basically I was working all the time. I got home, bought some pizzas, and we sat by the fire since we had no power. And he's like, "Oh, well, what have you been doing for the past few months? Because we haven't really seen each other." I was working and he was studying. And I was like, "Well, I've been mowing this guy's lawn." And he's like, "Right." And I was like PTing my friends at the time because I was into my personal training as well. And he's like, "Why don't you just make it a business? Like, why don't you sort of training people on the side and doing mowing people's lawns? Why don't you just make it your own business? It's like not that hard." And I was like, "Well, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to set that up." And he was like, "All right, well, we'll brainstorm some ideas and we'll make it happen." So that's where it began, really. And I heard that at a local swimming pool, the cleaners were really unreliable and crap. And I knew some mates that worked there. And I said, "Can you get me a contact? I want to contact the manager."
Yeah.
So that's how we got into our first commercial cleaning client. And then my mentor actually helped us get that client. He went in with an interview with me and walked around and talked to the managers and stuff. And yeah, we set it up like that. Started it at the new year, so January. And it's been 12 months now since we started there.
Yeah. And then that was just on the side of people we know for gardening and just building up a client base around that summer period. And then, it's sort of branched off in two directions that way. And that's sort of where we've gotten now is two distinct parts of the business, but they do complement each other quite well in that sense.
Yeah, so day and night work. So when we started in January, we were working during the day, building the gardening side of things, whilst then finishing the day at the pool, cleaning. And then we did that for about 3 months straight until we got staff. We had staff for the gardening, but we didn't have staff for the cleaning, and we were burning ourselves out. We were working probably 100-hour weeks on average. So we were just grinding it out. And so we're like, all right, we need to start getting staff on. And we had troubles with payment with the pools, commercial jobs and stuff like that. But eventually we figured it out and start building a team, and it's worked out really well since.
That's great. So I think that's one of the things which a lot of people need to get them over that initial hurdle is having a mentor or a franchise like gyms or something like that where they can get that system in place to go, okay, I can actually work out how to establish a business. Like, what do I need to call it a business instead of just being working for myself? And how do I do quotes? All those sorts of questions that people ask on LMCA all the time. If you don't know where to go, having that mentor has kickstarted you guys in the right direction really well.
Yeah, we've had a couple, just not even specific to the gardening and cleaning, but some sort of business contacts that they've been really good for us to lean on. And like you say, just having someone bridge that gap where, when you start, it's sort of like from where we were sitting, might have been, I think, 18 months ago, sitting in front of the fire and thinking it's a good idea, but then how do you put that to practice?
To now.
Going from there to now, and just all the stuff that we've learned from there, it wouldn't have been as easy to start without those support systems. So yeah, absolutely, the mentors come in handy for that reason, for sure.
Yeah, well, looking at some of the mistakes I've made over time, if you do some personal training for your friend, how do you make money out of that? Do you, like when you first do it, you're just like, oh yeah, I'll just do it just so that I can get a reputation and do it for nothing?
Mm.
Or do you go, oh, you know what, I think if I was working at Macca's, I'd get $20 an hour, so make it 25.
Mm.
All
Well, it
those
was
sorts of
more of a
questions.
yeah, it was more of a passion, I guess, and like I'm still really into my gym and stuff, but I got like online coaching, and then I had a coach local, so I've had two coaches, um, and then one of my clients actually became our new full timer. So he's been working his ass off,
Yeah.
and
Nice.
yeah, like he showed a lot of initiative and um, like just hard work in the gym. And I was like, hey, dude, do you want a job? And he's like, yeah. So,
But I think starting off with that sort of like, I mean, for you it was you were training because you wanted the practice, you wanted to learn how to communicate with new clients and how to I mean, it wasn't at the front of your mind to turn that into anything consistent with profitability and everything, but
Yeah.
it was more
learning.
about investing the time and getting a return in experience to then later on apply that to a
Content.
proper business that what you put in you get out, sort of thing. So those questions are definitely something that was quite a grey area until we really lent into trying new things and
Yeah.
asking dumb questions, all that sort of stuff. So
Well, thinking about this, I often recommend people you've got to try something, even if you make no money out of it, just so that you can get your reputation out there and go, okay, I can actually do this, and then make money out of it. But those are the
yeah,
sorts of things that stop people from trying. And one of those things, when I first started business, it wasn't in lawn mowing. And I was like, all right, I set myself up as a sole trader. And so when I started lawn mowing, I was like, I'm absolutely, whatever I do, I'm not going to be a sole trader, because I saw what happened and how that worked and how it didn't work very well for me as a business. So this time, set myself up with a family trust and a company. And that established the backbone of the business structure. And so all those little nuggets of gold that you learn along the way, if you've got a mentor that can help you work out how to do that beforehand, or you learn by mistakes, learn by trial and error.
yeah, I think we did. We learned quite a bit from trial and error.
Jackies.
We've got plenty of accounts. Even just like, I mean, we're only in the industry a short time, but when
Yeah.
we're quite young and we don't have that existing, like a lot of older contractors would have some time in existing businesses and having that customer
Yeah.
relation for quite a while before they consider starting their own thing. Whereas
Yep.
for Jesse's position, he's jumping straight out from
It's cool.
high school without that
No.
large base. I mean, he was working, but it's not as much experience as other people. So
Oh, well, my age, I had quite a fair chunk, but not in relation to like if I was older.
not stuff. I mean, bits and pieces, but not stuff you would specifically apply to customer service and everything that comes with building client relations. And like me as well, like working in a retail setting, I learned sales through that, I'd say, but I haven't been in that a long time. So being
Yeah.
young is a big barrier, for sure.
It can be. I see a lot of young people that don't let that be a barrier, and it is awesome to see people like yourself having a red hot go and learning some of those things by trial and error, but also learning off other people, and it's awesome. It's a good way to fast track your business and to get where you need to go. And there's no reason why over the next 2 years you guys can't build as successful a business as somebody who's in their middle age or whatever age. Age doesn't need to be a barrier. It can be. For me, I would say I've had to learn some of those lessons as I've matured. And, I'm not talking about maturing from 13 to 18 years of age. I'm talking about maturing from 30 to 40 years of age.
Yeah.
There's different levels of maturing. And, I still ride motorbikes and get into trouble for speeding. So I'm not all claiming to be all there yet.
Oh, yeah, we could talk about speeding for a bit, but yeah, no, I think, like, although it is definitely something, age is definitely something you can overcome, when we're talking in context of barriers. But I think it's also just, if you're honest and reliable, and you're, I guess, transparent with, what you're providing, and you're looking after the client, sort of thing.
Which is where we got everything from, pretty much.
Yeah, it's just been
showing up.
It's just been reliable, showing up. The age really doesn't. That facade sort of falls away. It doesn't really make a difference.
You do get the question of, how old are you guys? That was annoying.
Yeah, I don't know if Gary knows. Do you know who's the older one out of the two of us? Oh, well,
you did mention that.
Well, we said at the start, didn't we? Yeah, but
I wouldn't have known
generally
otherwise.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, we go to quotes and they'll consider Jesse the oldest because of probably the facial hair, as they give away the 70s style. But
the dirty mo.
The question, yeah.
Well, I had a beard. New Year's? I cut it off New Year's, and it was like down here.
Yeah,
and it was just this big ginger bloody beard.
But it was good because you didn't get how old are you guys? Like,
I bet you're not that experienced, or you don't know what you're talking about, or we've had that.
Yeah. There's been a lot of that, but it definitely, if you use it to your advantage, it sort of filters out those sort of clients where, I mean, sometimes they turn around and they really are impressed with the service, or they're stuck to that, they're too young. I wouldn't be paying someone that young to do that sort of work. And you just sort of filter those people out.
Yeah. Yeah, look, some of those people who are prejudiced against you because of your age are not worth your time. And some of them, they'll come round when they see that you do the quality of work. So if you're dealing with commercial work, then you'll very rarely get somebody go, yeah, you're not capable of doing it because you're 19 or 23 years old. Whereas when you're doing residential jobs, it's really hit and miss, because residential jobs, you'll have a customer who's 60 and a customer who's 25, and they're going to have very different outlook on what they think and if they think you're capable of doing the work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have had one.
Is a 60-year-old any better value than a 25-year-old customer? Not really, but they're both capable of getting you to cut their grass and pay you, and their age or their perception of you is their own problem, not your problem.
100%. Yeah, I think that's what we lean into, that, I guess, as a benefit rather than a disadvantage. When we're, I guess when we're quoting, we're also trying to build a criteria for who we'd like to service as well as who wants us to service them. And I think on those two spectrums as well, between the 20-odd-year-old or the 60-year-old, they've got different needs for different reasons. Like the 25-year-old might just have too much going on that they can't fit it in, and the 60-year-old might just be too old that they can't handle the work anymore.
Yeah. And it's the older customers who are much more likely to be a little bit judgmental of whether they think you're capable of doing it or not. The 25-year-old is just going to go, you know what, do the job, make sure it's done properly, and you get paid. Whereas the 60-year-old plus, they're going to be sitting there watching you while you're working, going, oh, these youngsters on their phones all day.
We have a lot of those. I think we've had anyone that's been sub 60 has done that without fail.
Above 60.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a few. I mean, I'll go as far as to say that we've been really lucky with a lot of the older clients that we've had. I'd probably say we may get more headaches from some of the 30s to 40s, but yeah, we've been
Yep.
pretty lucky. Like, I mean, in our area, everyone knows everyone, so
Yeah.
they're
Right.
families that have been here for a long time, and they have, I think they have a little more faith in their local contractors as well. So that's a big thing.
I think they're
I think the other
more
thing,
excited. No, sorry.
so the other thing that's massive there is when somebody is elderly, they are paying you as much to be a friend as to be a worker. So they want to know that you're going to relate to them somehow, that you're going to say hello, you're going to be friendly, you're going to keep an eye out for what's going on around, those sorts of things. So when you are doing residential jobs, a large part of what you're doing is becoming an integral part of that community.
100%. I think there's a few cases. I mean, I've noticed especially where there's a lot more involved with catering to an older client in terms of the follow ups and the communication itself and the specifics about what they're after and all that sort of stuff. Like, there's a lot of
Yeah.
phone calls and there's a lot of staying on site and chatting. Like that, conversations very abundant with the older clientele,
Yep.
which is great. Like, we're not opposed to that sort of client and customer and contractor relationship. But it is a pattern that we notice a lot.
Yeah. And it's something you got to allow for when you're doing a quote. If you're quoting an older person, you start going, am I going to spend 20 minutes doing their lawn and 40 minutes listening to them talk about their grandchildren?
Yeah, yeah. Most of the time, it is like I found myself adjusting the time allocated depending on who the client is. Like, I know that one particular client is 8 hours and it's a big job, but you're starting at 8 and you're finishing at 4. Whereas
Yeah.
other clients, you might be there for an hour, but you got to allow an hour either side to make sure that you get all the conversation out of the way. And probably not that extreme, but you've got that time allowable.
Yeah. And that's it. If you allow for that and you go, okay, that customer has an hour's work, but I'm allowing an hour and a half or an hour and 40 minutes total to make sure that I'm not underselling myself, not there for 1 hour's pay, I'm there for 2 hours pay or whatever it ends up being.
I think it took us a long time to learn, like even with quoting, like it goes alongside it. But even when you go to do the quote, us learning if we'll get along with the client, and it took us a long time to quote right, but then also
Have that mental checklist.
have a good judgment, I guess, on the customer that we're potentially serving. And all of that took us a long time to get good, I guess, or better.
And there's probably still quite a lot of room for growth there yet, I'm sure.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing I've learned personally over the last 12 months especially is just there's no room to be like naive and assume that you know everything in
Yep.
every aspect of the business, whether it's how to handle clients and how to provide a quality service and how to cater. Um, there's always more room to grow, obviously. But having that sort of naive perspective definitely gets you in trouble. And so there's a lot of self-checking and making sure that are we abiding by the standards that we'd want if we were getting this service, and just having that sort of growth mindset rather than fixed mindset has got us a long way.
That's pretty important. So one of the things I've noticed with you guys is that you weren't shy of putting on employees. So you
No.
went fairly early in the business straight into employing somebody to help you with the cleaning.
Yeah. It was more so gardening that we needed a hand with. And
Okay.
I think I was saying to Harrison the other day, I wish that we did hold off, but we had to put someone on because we were taking on jobs that we couldn't do just the two of us.
Yeah.
Which was our main thing. So we're taking on the big clearing jobs, and we could only be at one place at a time. But then also at the time not understanding what came with employees, I guess.
Yeah.
Fully.
I think we definitely jumped. There's obviously a good benefit to jumping feet first and not being afraid to make mistakes and everything. But I think at the start,
That was our biggest hurdle, I reckon.
yeah,
Staff.
yeah, the staff was a big thing for us. Just we took on a few people and we were adding to the books, but it was learning on the back end. The payroll and
That was your end,
the payroll, the leave, super, all that sort of stuff. Making sure that that's all ticked off and
award rates and
what to pay people. I mean, that was a big thing to figure out. And I mean, looking back now, we sort of sit here and it's just something that is every week for us. We sort of know what we need to look out for and what we need to cater for. But
I think we're racking our brains a bit. Like, what do we do?
Yeah. So I mean, I'd say the cleaning side of it was the easiest to hire for, just because there's a lot less variables.
Lost a lot less things to teach because I think our biggest, and this is still, not an issue, but it's still something that lingers. It's we've got like 7 gardeners, 6
on a part-time basis.
on a part time. So if you teach one of them, then you've got to teach all of them individually, and you can't just like teach them all at once because you've got to show them, and then you've got to follow up, and they do something, and you're like, okay, that's fantastic, or we can work on this, but then you've got to do that 6 more times. So that was the hardest bit, I reckon. And then on top of that, availability, which is something completely different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, I'm impressed with what you've done because it's probably the biggest point of people leaving the industry is, I mean, I think the first point is people leave the industry just because they never intended to actually do it as a full-time job or business. But the second point that people leave is over the idea of whether they can grow their business to be bigger and still profitable. So if you look at the typical person who's solo, when they put on staff, they call them a helper. They call them an offsider. They don't pay them wages. They don't pay them superannuation. They don't pay them leave. They just simply say, here's $25 for an hour's work. And you're going to be a parrot. You're going to do what I do. You're going to say what I say. And they expect that and then wonder why it doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, I think that was definitely something that we learnt very early on. I'm fortunate enough to have. I love listening to podcasts. I'm not yet into the lawn and gardening podcast, but I'm a big fan of. There's a big podcast called the All In Podcast, and I listen to them every week. And they're very heavy into business and politics and just mainly tech and all that sort of stuff. But overall, they're very informative on how things should be perceived and how to approach new challenges, all that sort of stuff. And I learned from that about the idea of investing in someone. And what that return would get you as a business owner, and having that perspective of, they're not just a tool, and the more you invest in someone, the more you get back. So I think having that insight from day dot was a massive benefit for us. And just really looking after those staff in a way that you would want to be looked after at any other business.
Yeah, I think that's gold. Knowing that you're going to treat staff as people and as people that have needs is going to change the way you look at it, rather than I just want them to cut grass, or I just want them to clean the toilets, or whatever else you might be expecting them to do. To go, okay, we're investing in them, they're investing in us, and it's a symbiotic relationship where you both get benefits from being in that work relationship. There's a lot to it. A lot of people just get scared off and don't do it, or they, like I said, they just treat it like you're going to be an extension of me and do exactly what I do. And when you don't do that, I'm not going to recognize that I didn't put the effort in. I'm just going to blame you for getting it wrong.
Yeah, I think one thing which I think you'll probably agree with me on is when, I mean, we've had short exposure to other work, as I'd mentioned, but Jesse's had particularly bad experiences with bosses in the past, and so that was a really good example of what not to do. So that sort of gave us a bit of a mission in that sense, as to
being better than
how
we were treated.
Yeah, being better than the examples that were set. And
cool.
what we found works really well for us is treating people as equal. Like I think we don't like the arrogance of being considered the bosses. I really hate,
and we really don't sit in like a boss's seat. It's more like we're having fun, we're out joking, like we'll say jokes, and they're like, right, well, I wouldn't get another boss joking like the way we do with them, and it's more of like a friendship, because they're all my mates, particularly. But it's great because we all have a joke, we all have a laugh. It's like, oh, I'm a bit hungry. All right, we'll go down to the local bakery and get some pies, and we'll pay, and it's just a good, enjoyable
work experience.
Yeah, work experience.
And I think the facade of, like, when sort of people come on site and they go, "Oh, who's the boss?" I can't stand when people do that. Like, I feel like having the workers that we've got and having that sort of equal basis with everybody,
they're really good.
It brings those workers up. It gives them a bit of a sense of, I guess, belonging in the, and not be subordinates, I guess, is probably the better way to put it.
That's awesome. So I was going to ask about that, where you got the labour pool from. So it's mostly from friends, school friends, I'm guessing.
Yeah, a lot of them are my mates, and if not, connections through other workplaces that I've been in. Like two of the cleaners, one of the cleaners, I got her on because I used to work with her at a cafe. That was one of my first jobs. And then her mum needed work, so we're like, all right, we'll get her mum on then. So yeah, she was like, I need work. I was like, yeah, all right, if you're willing to work, we'll put you on. And it works because her daughter's working in the same place, so they can, give a lift or whatever.
Yep.
Nice. A lot of them were part of my friend group, or just people I know around that were really good people.
Yeah. Word of mouth is as good for finding employees as it is for finding customers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not always the case. I'm sure you've found this, but in the time you've been employing people, it's been pretty hard work for a lot of people to find employees, full stop.
Especially ones that are available as we want and are skilled or eager and like want to work as hard as the ones that we really like and that have stuck around.
I think this is probably something we'll figure out in, I guess, especially this year, is refining skills and everything like that. But what we found is, and it would be very different to a lot of other contractors, where instead of looking for someone that already has that skill set, and when you put them on, they're a profitable machine from day dot. We are growing.
Yeah.
Well, we've been growing, especially in the last 12 months personally, with the business. And so having that aspect of it just gives us, it sort of breaks down the expectation that someone's going to know everything when they start. And so being in the position that we're in, we find that anyone that's younger or, is just looking for work, it's a matter of teaching them and guiding them in the right direction. And it gives you a bit more control over what stage you want to get to, because you're the one that's putting in all the effort to get them to that standard. And so whatever you teach is what you get, sort of thing. And I think investing that time makes a big difference when handling employees.
For sure. Makes a big difference.
Mm.
So, yeah, I know a lot of people coming out of COVID have just found that it's impossible to find staff. Before COVID, it was quite easy to find somebody who was looking for work, who was willing to do some gardening work or work that was labour intensive. And since COVID, it's been the opposite. It's been near impossible to find people like that. So, yeah, like you say, it's really important to have those networks to draw from and to find the right people who need the work.
Yeah, I definitely think it's we've been really lucky with workers, but
yeah,
I mean, there's just little things that we got to work on, like availability and who's committed to like full time or part time or whatever it is. Just delegating who fits in what role and what amount of work they're getting, etc. So I think that's our next little hurdle, just to see who's full time, who's doing this, who's doing that, and set that in place, I guess.
Yep. And I think that the difference when you take on a customer, you do a bit of vetting or triaging the customers when you first contact them, when you go around to do a quote, and when you agree to do the job. You've reached a point where you've triaged that customer down to somebody who you'd be happy to work with. But when you're taking on an employee, you don't really get as much opportunity to go through that process of filtering them before you decide to give them a go.
Yeah, I mean, we never really had that process of the interviews and the resumes and all that sort of stuff. So it's definitely taken away that filtering that you do have when you're taking on new customers. So yeah, I do think that, I mean, I guess you have that benefit, like I said, of just crafting the right sort of employee in that sense. But it is very separate to like when you're gaining new clients. You have a bit more to work with, I guess, with employees.
Yeah, for sure.
Shall we dabble into equipment?
Yeah, definitely. So I want to give people some insight into what your business looks like all around. So you've mentioned, Jesse, I think you mentioned you got about 7 or 8 employees that are casual, part-time, full-time, mixture.
So everyone's part-time, right? I think. Yeah.
Yep.
We've got a total of, I'd say 16.
Including the cleaning and the gardening.
Yeah, so cleaning and gardening combined, and then admin, we've got probably a total of 16 or 17 staff. Of the gardening would be 6 or 7. And I'd say the cleaning side of things is probably the best it can be set up at the moment. I reckon we've done that really well in the way of staff. And having a system and making sure everyone knows when their roster's on, that's, well, I think we've nailed it on the head to where we're at now, really. And we've really come up with a pretty decent system for that. And yeah, sort of like what we were talking about before, it's sort of our backbone. cleaning. It's always running every single night.
I would say backbone. I'd probably just say just extra support.
Yeah.
Because it is a fair cut between the cleaning and the gardening in terms of like revenue and what profit margin we make from both. But it's pretty evenly split, I'd say.
I'm pretty happy with it all round.
And we got marketing as well. We've got a marketing guy we use.
So with the okay. So let's have a look at that. You've got the cleaning side of things, and then you've got the gardening side of things. With the cleaners, when you send a cleaner out to do a job, they take a bucket and a mop and some chemicals with them, maybe a vacuum cleaner. When you're sending somebody out to do a gardening job, what's a typical gardening job look like in terms of the equipment you send them out with? Do they have their own vehicles, or do you send them out with a ute and a trailer and lawnmowers and all the gear?
So I'd say this is still a work in progress, I'd say, but we're getting so much closer to sending them out on their own. Most of the time we're with them, so either one of us. So either it's a two-man on two different runs, so Harrison's with someone, I'm with someone, or I'm with two other people, Harrison's with one. That's sort of how it's working at the moment. But sometimes every now and then we can send them out on their own because we can just say, look, you guys know what you're doing. Go do that job. And we've just put in a bit of an incentive with obviously like pay raising. If you can go out, do the job, it's all good, and you don't need us to
intervene.
Yeah, be there, or for I don't know, probably hold their hand really.
Yeah, no, I mean it's just building up. Like when we've got someone shadowing us, most of the time it is two people on a given run, and a lot of, I mean, the larger numbers, when you think about 7 to 8 gardeners, a lot of those larger numbers come from the day rates that we run as well. We do like a big sort of overgrowth cleanup. So 90% of the jobs we're there for, and the equipment follows us on a trailer or on the ute that we've got. So it's a bit more versatile in that sense, and we're just trying to
condense
it, but figure out how to I guess mold people in the right direction so that they are independent.
Yeah, okay. So what I'm hearing is that most of the time when you guys are doing gardening, it's two teams. Either of you are the team leader for the individual team.
Yeah,
virtually, yeah.
And then you've got casual part-time staff that will fill in the days that you've got working on those jobs.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
All right. So are you both running trailer setups?
Pretty much. Our staff do have the ability to tow now, which is great. We have our own ute, and we're looking at getting a second ute, but at the moment it's just not feasible, I guess, and we don't necessarily need it as such right now.
But it will run so that the ute carries one part of the required equipment, and then the trailer will run the other. And so the trailer's got everything that they need on one run, whether it's, it might look like one side of the day is a mowing routine, and then the other side is overgrowth. And so because the equipment sort of differs between those two, it's easier to spread. And then, sometimes it's just a matter of fitting in two mowing runs and
figuring out what equipment we have available, really.
Yeah.
So we just ran into a bit of trouble last week on that side because we had two mowers out of operation, and we have the Ego Select Cut, which was the only push mower we had. And coming off the Christmas break, we took an extra week off, so everything was a bit thicker. So that was a bit interesting, but we made do.
It certainly tests your limits as a business, doesn't it? When you come back from a week off, and I've just done the same thing today. I had Christmas off, and then I worked 3 days between Christmas and New Year's, and then I had a week off and came back today. And first thing on the job this morning, I had a problem with my mower.
Oh.
And it's like, okay, what do we do? How do you try and find a mower shop to help you out on this at this point in January when everyone's still on holidays or they've got a backlog of jobs to sort out already?
So what did you do to get back? Because do you have to get back into it tomorrow?
Oh, look, I panicked for a minute because I was like, all right, I've got, like you, everything's overgrown from a week of hot humidity. And yeah, the grass was literally out of control. And I was stuck on the side of the road with a mower that wouldn't run.
Right.
After I panicked and actually talked to my favourite mower shop about it and went and did some diagnostics and tried a few things, I realised, and don't laugh at me for this, the petrol tap was off.
Ah, there you go.
Oh, I laughed.
You know,
bad.
we've made that mistake as well. So it's not like we can shit on you for that. But
I'm used to mowers that don't have a petrol tap. This is the first time I've had a petrol tap in years and years and years, and never have this problem with battery tools either. But I'm sitting there going, it's clearly a fuel problem. The way that it's behaving, it's not getting fuel through, and that means it must be the fuel pump. Oh no, maybe it's the filter. Hang on a minute, it's the petrol tap.
That's probably a relief.
Yeah, I felt a little bit embarrassed, but yeah, like you say, it's a relief to go, yeah, I can get straight back into it. And it's one of those things where it's like, I definitely didn't turn that petrol tap off. So I don't know why it was off, but it was off. Right. And I actually checked it in the diagnosing the problem myself. I actually went over everything and I was like, the fuel tap said, I could see the O, and I was like, it's on. And then when I went back and had a look afterwards, when I'm, tried everything and going, oh, that O is in front of 2 Fs. Off.
Maybe someone had a little spin on it while you're away. That's probably what happened.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. It's possible that somebody had a look at it and flicked the fuel tap. It's possible. Who knows what happened? I'm not into worrying about that now. I'm like, yeah, I can get back mowing. Got time to make up.
Yeah, I think we're sort of. I mean, this week we're rained off today, and part of last week we were rained off as well. Actually, just because
first day back, Wednesday, and then Thursday.
Yeah, yep. So I mean, it's forced us inside. Really, like we're taking the opportunity to sort of recalibrate after a break and after the big year that we've had, and just sort of figure out what we want the next year to look like. I mean, it sucks. Like we have to catch up and we have to sort of figure out how to get back into that routine again efficiently as well.
Yeah.
But
the first real break in 14 months.
Yeah, it's the first time we've taken time off because I mean the business stops really when you step away. But I mean, not so much for the cleaning, but mainly for the gardening. And so I think one of the things we want to get to this year is to have it so that
when we step away, it's still functional. Which I think that's why I'm so happy about the cleaning side of things, because we don't actually have to be there at all. If we chose to take the entire year off cleaning, like obviously quality would drop a little bit, but we could put in systems that would bring that back up, and like it's very doable without us being there. Which like Harrison's just saying, we want to make that a goal for the gardening to be that as well.
Yeah, cleaning's probably a little bit easier. You could easily have a team leader or a manager for cleaning that would take your place fairly easily. But to do that with mowing and gardening takes a little bit more effort. It's a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, which finding that that person, we've been talking about that for a while now. Actually, it's just finding like I don't know, maybe someone in their 40s or 30s or whatever, someone a bit older that has done it for a bit and is like, yeah, I don't mind getting paid a little bit more than I'm currently or something, I don't know, but someone that can lead a team and to the expectation that we want as a manager, like hiring that person and paying that extra bit more for us to go off and then grow the business, or step back and look at it from a different angle and be like, right, this is all going really well. What can we improve in this, or can we expand this and that?
Yeah.
So
to get more insight into your business, we're talking about two teams running around, 2 vehicles, trailers. I've seen a few things that you've shared with me and things you put up on social media, on Instagram. So I've got a little bit of insight here, but let's help the listeners understand this best. Either of you will be running around with a vehicle, potentially with a trailer. Yep. So you're varied between mowing lawns and doing overgrown garden cleanup jobs by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
So would I be right to say that there's 2 teams working 5 days a week most of the time?
Definitely towards the end of the year. I think our
end of last year.
Yeah, end of the year, like December, November was 2 really big months, and that was the case for those 2 months. Is pretty much 5 days a week, 2 teams.
I feel like that purely depends on availability with our staff. That's like,
but that's what it looks like generally. And so having come into the new year, we're not jumping straight back into that system, but we are trying to figure out how to make that better. But yes, that was sort of, as we ended off the last year, that's what it looked like, was 2 teams, 5 days roughly.
And it was really good. Like, that's probably the best, I reckon the best month. Productivity, I guess, or efficiency, I think. It was the best month because we finally hit that point where I was like, okay, well, everyone sort of know what they're doing now. Everyone's getting a bit more confident. We're leading towards the end of the year. We've got the goals for the next year, and everyone's sort of like getting money for whatever, Christmas, New Year's, and everyone's like working their ass off, and it's just beautiful. Like, it worked really well.
Yeah. So I think both of your setups have a ride-on mower you can use.
No, we sort of, I mean, the way we've been splitting up the work is one side will have the ride-on necessary work, and then the other side will just have push mowing. Because I think, I mean, up in the hills, we have really few acceptable jobs for ride-ons. And so it's a market we're trying to target now, is figuring out where to take it and where it's most profitable,
and also where it won't absolutely destroy the machine, because there's a lot of trees and roots and and a lot of divots and wombats and holes everywhere, but there is quite a few jobs that we do have that like suit the machine beautifully. So
So what size properties are you looking after? If we draw a line and say what's the smallest, what's the largest, and what's the average?
Smallest would be just nature strips.
Yeah, there's suburban areas where we, like, the smallest is literally like a 3 by 2 meter grass patch. Like, that's the smallest client.
Yeah.
And their neighbor is the second smallest.
Yeah, the neighbors. Yeah.
Oh wait, no. The other second smallest would be Michael in.
That's who I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the smallest.
Yeah, that'd be the smallest, and then the third and second smallest are the neighbors.
And so that'd be the smaller size, and then the larger size is, when it comes to regular mowing, it's probably about an acre would be the largest, really, when on a regular basis.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything larger than
what's your average look like?
Sorry, go ahead.
So what does your average property look like when you're doing mowing?
I'd say 1/4 to 1/2 acre.
Yeah, about 1/4 to 1/2, and on a slope most of the time.
Lovely. So sort of if the property's 1/4 acre, that's 1,000 square meters. If it's a 1/2 acre, it's 2,000 square meters. And that means you're mowing sort of from 600 through to 1,500, 1,800 square meters.
Roughly, yeah. Yeah, that's probably our average.
Yeah. So that is a really good size to be running a 32 or a 42-inch ride-on mower for a lot of those properties.
42-inch Raptor, the Hustler.
Yep.
So
that's a staple on the Australian market, the 42-inch Raptor.
it's really nice. It's really, really good.
It is a beautiful machine. I mean, we like I said, we don't have a lot of clients that we can take it on confidently, but it's definitely surprised us with how capable it is. On jobs that we thought would take longer, it's definitely chewed through. And
there was one property, as soon as we bought it, essentially just like gave us some money straight back. Just there was a half acre that was completely overgrown. It was all grass. There was it was just the whole thing was grass. And I'd say when you're sitting on the Hustler, it's around about head height grass.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm 5'11", Harrison's.
That's hard work for a Raptor.
Yeah, no, but it wasn't. It munched it up and spat it out like it was nothing.
Yeah, it was fortunate enough that it was dry, and so it was pretty I guess moisture free, so that helped. And it's cut on a high speed, so we cut right at the highest. And then we've sort of worked it down so that whatever we mulched, we've just gone over again, I think twice since then.
Due for another one.
And so that was quite a surprising one, because something that we thought was going to take us a full day with the equipment we had prior, probably not a full day. Probably
it actually took me an hour and a half.
Took about an hour and a half. So we were expecting 5 to 6 hours of really thick grass, and this thing did it in an hour and a half. So
we priced that beautifully as well. I reckon I was feeling really confident on the phone. I called the guy and I was like, "Look, this is what it's going to be." I said originally, I was in my head before I got on the phone. I said, "Right, it's going to be 1.6." I was aiming for 1,600. That was my end goal, and I got on the phone. I said, "Look, for a job like this, it's going to be $2,000. That's what we usually charge." And then what I can give you is a service where we can reduce the clippings to almost nothing. So we won't have to pay for it to get removed. And he's like, "Oh, okay, I kind of like that idea."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Look, I can do you for 1.8. We usually price it at 2,000." And then he was like,
"What are you offered 1.5?"
Yeah, he said, "Oh, what about 1.5?" And I was like, "Well, what I'm going to propose to you is that we revisit probably 4 more times after this, in like every fortnight, so we can lock in a regular maintenance, so it doesn't get to this again before you start building." And he was like, "Yeah, all right, this sounds good." And I was like, "Well, I'll do it for 1.6 and we'll lock in 4 more visits." And he was like, "Yep, done."
Yep.
So, and then it took me an hour and a half plus a nature strip, took me 3 hours total for the first visit.
Awesome.
And then I locked in every visit after that was 220.
220.
Every visit after that. So
nice.
Yeah. So pretty good. And that's paid at
that's awesome.
Just almost upwards of $2,000 back to the mower.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you consider the labour taken and everything, it's probably more like...
Oh, it's probably 1.8, like in the end of things, at the very end.
Yeah, so...
But still, paid itself off pretty quick.
Want to look at what your business looks like, so that people get a really good understanding of how big your business is, what tools you use, how many employees you've got, all those sorts of things. So, how much turnover you got, and feel free to tell me to shut up if you don't want to talk about any numbers, because it's personal. But
no.
If you do share, people love it.
I have definitely learnt that gatekeeping doesn't really get you too far, I don't think. Like, I reckon it's beneficial to be quite open and honest about what you're doing, and it opens you up to other people that are doing the same. So
She just read off a few numbers and the month, what was it, our year, and then we had the 2 months that pretty much we made that entire year. You remember that?
Yeah, do you want to get that notebook out of my...
Oh, okay. Yeah, that works.
So we did... Yeah, in there. Because this year's looked very like... We started from nothing, really. Like, I think we brought a little mower at the start from Bunnings.
This one?
And now we're where we are now.
Yeah.
You want numbers?
Yeah, I know he's after numbers. Because we sat down and we worked out what our monthly numbers look like. So...
Yeah, Harrison's the numbers man.
He's the numbers man.
Yeah.
I'm the sit in the shed and clean it off and sharpen it for a few hours, man.
So, I mean, if...
Jesse's the model and Harrison's the numbers man.
You want me to start overdoing that? Yeah, don't get...
Jesse, you got to get rid of the moustache if you're going to be the model.
No, I think that makes it all the more the merrier. I think.
Oh, I don't know about that, but anyway.
Well, it'll attract the right kind of middle-aged men.
Yeah, I'm glad he finished with men. Yeah.
Damn it.
Is it damn it or yeah? I don't know. So, I mean...
I'm sure it'll attract some elderly women too.
I think...
Sorry, go ahead, Harrison. We're just crap.
Yeah, you're just ogling at each other. I'll let that slide for now. Yeah, no, I mean, if we start from January, so we go back 12 months, it was pretty much just me and Jesse. So that month was about $5,000 in, which is, it's very minimal, but it's where we started. And then fast forward to, I haven't done December's numbers this last month. I think December's bigger, but fast forward to November and it's 35,000 in roughly. So that's overall with the cleaning and the gardening.
So that's 7 times bigger.
Yeah, and it's progressively grown. Each month we sort of, if I go back to, we go January, Feb, they're about the same, nearly about $5,000 each, and then
doubled it.
And then in March we did 22,000.
Oh, okay, we did a lot more.
Yeah, so I think we 4x'd from Feb to March, and that was when we really started getting into the cleaning and the gardening side of it properly. We probably averaged around that throughout the year, and then towards August, September, that's when we started getting the 25, 20, and then 35, and I'd say December is probably about 40, 45 roughly. So
coming out of winter, it just came on really strong.
Yeah. It was, I think the cleaning made a massive difference to, the numbers side of things. But that was probably one of the best decisions we made was, sitting down and saying, how are we going to stay afloat during the cold period? And that was the answer.
And I think when I had a phone call with you, I was talking about getting the rider, and you're like, well, how many regular lawns do you have? And I couldn't really answer you at all. And I think that was around that time, just after winter. I was like, right, well, I need to sort that out. So I think that I wouldn't say nailed it on the head. We've done really well from when we spoke about that. And I think this winter is going to be a lot more interesting because we're going to have that behind us, as well as, we're going to have something behind us because we didn't have that last winter. We didn't have time to set up that regular clientele.
Yeah.
And we had really nothing to back us going into winter. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, those sorts of numbers that you're talking about now, it makes a lot of sense to have a ride-on mower that is powerful enough to tackle those overgrown jobs with higher productivity. So if you look at what you're using at the moment, it's probably about a 22 horsepower engine on that machine.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you go up to say a 52 inch in Wright or Skag or some of the Hustler options 52 inch, because if you like your Hustler, you might want to stay there. But some of those machines are running 37 horsepower fuel injected motors.
Yeah, which are
And
very meaty.
that means when you're tackling overgrown jobs, that's going to make a massive difference to how quickly you can get through them.
It's funny you bring that up because today we're in one of our local stores just looking at some. I think Jesse was looking at getting some new work boots, and we're talking to another contractor that's
just starting up,
literally just starting up, and I don't know what the unit's called, but he was showing us video of a remote controlled, basically like a slasher unit. So it was very humbling watching him.
I'll send you a video on Instagram.
It's very humbling watching him do a section in 15 minutes, maybe 5 minutes actually, that would usually take us like 4 hours, 5 hours, just from this this remote control unit. It wasn't battery, but remote control unit just sort of drove through. I think he spent 150K on it. But
I just sent it to you on Instagram. It's pretty ridiculous. It's a 1.7 ton machine.
Yeah, okay. I'll have to have a look after we've finished recording because my phone is my camera at the moment.
But yeah, no, that's something that like, I mean, you'd think about what alternative, I guess, solutions to different areas would be, and that's probably like the end target is something like that, and that would be,
or even working in coherence with him, just really building a really good business with him or alongside him. He does his own thing, and we just have a service that's really efficient together.
But yeah, I mean, like if we
I would suggest if you're
sorry, go ahead.
If you're getting enough overgrown jobs to warrant having a better machine, then you want to do it yourself rather than subcontracting it out to him. But if it's sort of one job a month or a couple of jobs a month, then it would be a lot more efficient to subcontract him to do those jobs with his machine rather than you investing in it.
Yeah, I think we'd rather subby to him, because I don't think that's like
at our position now that would make sense.
Yeah,
but I mean,
even in future, I wouldn't.
Yeah, you're talking about $150,000 unit, and I mean, like if we circle like that, it's probably a good just circling back to the numbers. Is last year total, I think, was about 200,000 overall. That's 200,000 in, and as a growth year, that you don't retain a lot of that because most of the expense comes out in equipment, wages, all that sort of stuff. Marketing, whatnot. So
yeah, for sure,
it's not something I'm starting to learn.
That,
I mean, I guess from where you start, like it's probably just a good note that we started from one little bank account that was some money went in, some money went out, to what we have now, where it's all divvied up into sections for tax and profit and expenses. It's much easier to see now, like a unit that's expensive doesn't make sense unless you're making a certain amount of money. So, I mean, that specifically wouldn't be something we'd be looking at for quite some time.
That's right. Yeah, well, like I said, if you spent $25,000 on a zero turn that's going to improve your productivity, that's a lot less than $150,000 on a machine that is dedicated to doing slopes and overgrown slopes.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah, you got to put your money where your majority of your work is, or where it's worthwhile. I bought a 1.7 ton excavator secondhand for $20,000 a few years ago. So back about 2017, and I think I made $10,000 in winter, and then it sat there doing nothing in summer. So it was like, all right, I got to sell it again because it's not productive.
Yeah.
It's a hugely productive machine, but it's not productive in my business. It was only getting used in winter.
Yeah, I think I'm I mean, when we're purchasing now, especially, there's that that pre-purchase sort of
thought.
Yeah, I mean, criteria that you go through, like, how much would you need to charge to pay that expense, to pay the person operating it, to make it so that whatever you've got, is it going to be enough to support paying off that unit and for itself to make enough money back?
The perfect example would be a splitter. So, like, in the winter, we'd have a lot more connections with arborists or whatever leading into the new year, like this year, which would probably be a better investment than back in the start when we were looking at splitters and we're like, oh, do we get it? Don't we get it? We were hiring it out from hiring business and stuff. And we just didn't have enough
justification.
Yeah, we didn't get it because we're like, well, we'd rather just rent it out from Better Rentals or whatever, or Kennards, and just
for sure
just charge the higher fee. But now that I'm moving into potentially doing an arborist course this year, with 2 of our staff, we are we'd be a lot more justified to get a splitter because we're in that industry and we'd have a lot more connections with arborists.
Yep, I've done the same thing as you. I've hired a splitter 2 winters in a row. Hired it to do a day's work, maybe 2 days' work at one stage, and then send it back again. And it's great when you hire it for doing a short job like that and you send it back again. It's not at all efficient to go and buy a machine for those 2 days' work.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got the right approach and you're sort of starting to target as a regular service, it's just a matter of I guess figuring out so that you've got a positive net income rather than it costing you more, because you've got all the maintenance and everything aside that as well. But like you say, it's adding to the services you already provide, and if you're refining those, it's getting equipment for a work sort of basis that you already have and adding value rather than trying to add a new service with new value.
And that's why I talked about getting a zero turn that's got 35 to 40 horsepower, because that you can utilize on a lot of jobs that you already do.
Yeah.
Whereas going to the $150,000 machine that's specialized at doing slopes, overgrown slopes, that's a unique field that you then need to build up to make it justified. Mm-hmm. So I often look at it from that point of view going, okay, if I have a machine that I already utilize a lot, I can probably buy a better version of that machine that's going to make me more productive on the jobs I've already got.
100%.
But to buy that 1.7 ton excavator that I had, it was like I could see a need for it, but the amount of work that it did for me did not justify having it.
Yeah, and I mean, what sort of work would you put that towards? Like landscaping? Like it's a
Well, I used it for land clearing mostly. So any overgrown jobs, not cutting grass, but any overgrown jobs where you're doing any scrub clearing or undergrowth clearing, it's perfect.
Yeah. But there's you've got access issues and stuff like that as well. I think that's probably an issue that we have.
Yeah.
Up our way, because you've got slopes here, there, and everywhere. So I mean, it's considering all those factors as well that we've found that's helped us before purchasing equipment like that.
Yeah. And I did a land clearing job, which I had a look at, had the excavator, and I said, there's no way the excavator can get on that because it's too steep.
Yeah, no, I think, and it's having the confidence as well. Like we have a job at the moment, which it was a clearing, like a slashing job. And it's moving towards a regular maintenance now because it's under control. And I think someone commented on it. I was showing one of our family friends, and they said, "Well, why don't you just bring a tractor in and just slash it all?" And like from our perspective, it just doesn't make sense because you've got a slope like that, and you're bringing heavy duty equipment, you're better off just putting a push mower on the property and going from top to bottom. Although it takes a bit longer, maybe you're going to be a lot more worthwhile with something that's that is cost efficient and
there's no risk.
There's no risk. Yeah, it's cutting out all the risk.
Yeah.
So it
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the moment, I guess that's what you'd be looking at is going, okay, where does the bulk of our work come from, and have we got the most efficient tools for doing that work?
I think, that's probably good. Something to double click into as well is, and you would have noticed on our social media, I think, the purchase of battery gear as well, especially up our way. Yes. That was something I think initially going into it, we had an idea of what we were going to get, and we put a little bit of thought into it, and then sort of fast forward to when we were in the shop and considering the stuff that we'd heard, through podcasts and online information and everything, we ended up getting into battery gear and the Ego equipment, and so
that would be the perfect time for an Ego promotion.
Yeah. Anyway, no, we spent quite a bit of money on it, but we've found that it's surprisingly efficient for the type of work that we do. Not so much the overgrown, sort of work, but it's really fantastic for all the regular type of stuff that we're working with at the moment.
Especially the blowers and
the blowers and the mower. That's a lethal combination, those two.
Yeah, and I've used quite a few Ego tools myself, and I can say that's definitely where the money's at. The blowers, the mowers, they perform exceptionally well. But the other thing I look at there is going, okay, if you're whippersnipping a lot of overgrown grass, your whippersnipper has a huge load on it, and a battery-powered whippersnipper is not the right tool for doing that. It can do it, but you go through a battery in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes instead of half hour to 45 minutes.
And I know you love the whippersnippers we use.
Yeah.
No.
You're talking the Ego?
No, the still the heavy duty ones. We've got the
131.
Yeah, the 131 and the 111.
Yeah, okay. I've got the 131, but I haven't used the 111.
I'd say
the 131
they're identical, pretty much. The only difference I find is that the 131 actually melts the line a lot quicker. That's it.
Yeah. No, I like the 131 for doing overgrown jobs.
Yeah, that's what we found. I mean, but there's still, like, sort of leaning into your point as well, is the still gear is mainly those day visits, like the proper, real hard type, strenuous work, and then the Ego exclusively will be for that routine side of things, where it's not under as much strain, but we save that expensive fuel, and it cuts down on the friction on the job, whereas the overgrowth is good for petrol.
Yeah, it reduces your fuel bill quite a lot using the battery gear on those jobs where you can use it.
100%. And it's just, I mean, it's lighter gear as well. Like, it packs up a lot easier, I find. And
it's easier to take in and out, switch the batteries.
Yeah, lightweight. We weren't expecting, I mean, I definitely wasn't expecting the weight of equipment to be such a big thing. But, when we cut down on the weight, it makes life so much easier, which I wasn't expecting to find, but definitely something we've found is a big benefit.
Probably with the hedges is the most. That's like the biggest
hedge
difference.
trimmers.
Yeah, the hedge trimmers.
Yeah.
So, and they're like the fuel.
I was going to bring that up because I've found when you're doing overgrown work, instead of just using a whippersnapper like you would if you're using petrol gear, that some overgrown jobs respond exceptionally well to hedge trimmers or rotary scissors.
Hedge trimmers especially.
So I've found,
Yeah.
yeah, an articulating head on a pole hedge allows you to actually cut a lot of things off at ground level really easily and just saves so much effort.
Yeah, and I mean, when we when we compare, like, a lot of people surprisingly don't expect us to come in with handheld hedge trimmers just to cut away blackberries and any out of control, even thicker grasses like native grasses that people don't want there. Just makes life so much easier. And yeah, we've found that the sort of still hedge trimmers are inadvertently a really good tool to use for those sort of overgrowth type situations.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, ego can do it, but I wouldn't put too much strain under the ego stuff. We're a bit selective with
Yeah.
what we use.
Yep. The other tool that I've found really good for overgrown jobs lately is going for the blade edger. So there's a lot of times where
literally just
Yeah, he's just looking at it.
I was wanting to ask about it, and I literally just Googled it, and then you just said it. What a coincidence!
Yeah.
Well, why would that be overgrowth?
It's for like just because you're chewing through line. I've wanted to get one for a
Yeah.
while, but I don't know how good they are with the ego. But
Well, I've used a
yeah,
few
like I've
different
found
blade
myself.
edges. I've got an atom edger and I've got a Still FS94R with a blade edger on it, and I've got a Husky 325 battery powered multi tool with the blade edger on it as well. And the Ego dedicated blade edger is the best by far. And it
Really?
does chew through the batteries, but it chews through those edges so quickly that it makes it worth it. So if
Yeah.
you got
Okay.
an
That's
overgrown
interesting.
edge, it just makes that job so quick and easy to tame, get it under control, and then you don't need it to maintain the edges. But if I'm doing a lot of edges on a particular day, even if they're not overgrown, I'll grab the blade edger instead of the whippersnipper because I can cover so much ground so quickly.
Well, yeah, that's probably a good thing. Like, I mean, even using, like, we'll sort of select our line as well, depending on what sort of job we're going for.
Yeah,
And definitely, I mean, even 3 mil line struggles on some of those thicker areas, and you can't cut a
yeah,
clean edge with, regardless of what line you use. It's not going to happen unless you cut it out, and then
yeah,
Like
maintain
4 times.
with line. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the little minute things we'll refine in the new year, but that'll definitely cut down. It's just making all those choices to cut down on expense and
yeah.
keep up the efficiency, I guess.
Yeah, well, I've found that to be a time saver as well as an efficiency for the batteries. Just choosing the right tool for the right edge. And I run 2 millimeter line in my Husky whippersnipper. I run 2.4 mil in my Ego, and then I use the blade edger whenever it's out of control. I love it when you keep my ego in check. Recently, I bought the multi-port charging case and a 7.5 amp battery to fill out the sixth spot in the charging case. The multi-port charging case charges all 6 batteries from the least charged until they're all matched and then simultaneously charges them to full. The 7.5 amp battery gives me a great balance between weight and runtime. Plus, it goes a little harder on the 1300 metre an hour blower and the STX 4500 whippersnipper. It's often my first battery to get put on a tool. No fumes, no fuss. Just great power whenever you need it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, we've never touched blade edges. We use the multi tool on the still with the
Yeah,
like little slasher equipment sort of
The
head,
diamond.
rather than the what other attachment is there?
No, it's a whipsnipper.
Oh yeah, it's a whippersnipper head, so you just switch it out for the blade. But
yep,
that's particularly good for the sword grass type, you know, cutting those down, slashing
yeah,
that sort of.
And we'd prioritize the Still 94R, like that combi unit for the pole saw and the pole trimmer when we're dealing with quite thicker stuff, especially the pole
yep,
saw. But then
yeah,
if it's just like the maintain jobs, we'd use the Ego.
Yeah,
it's
for
just
sure.
like, yeah, it just makes sense. A bit more grunt in the still,
Definitely.
and then
You also don't burn your guts out if you lean it against your stomach with the ego.
I love that.
The amount of times I've burnt myself with the exhaust, because I'm left-handed, so the exhaust ends up against my arm a lot of the time.
Yeah, right. Oh, it's funny.
Yeah.
I didn't
Hendrix.
even realize that actually,
Yeah.
that it faces that way. But that's an interesting point.
I've heard about it a lot.
Yeah.
There you go. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Which was your main? That was your main, I guess, enjoyment out of switching to battery when you went to the Husky whip snipper. You're just like, I don't get burnt all.
That's definitely a big factor for me. So,
Hmm.
I mean, noise initially, you go, yeah, the battery powered whippersnipper's heaps quieter than the petrol one. But when you're on the phone to somebody and oh, yeah, it's battery powered, they won't notice it. It makes a lot of noise on the microphone.
Ah,
So it's actually quite a lot
yeah.
noisier than you expect it to be. But I think not burning my arm because of the exhaust and the joy of using battery hedge trimmers is just amazing.
Do you do a lot of hedge work as well?
Yeah, I do a fair bit of hedge work. So find using a battery hedge trimmer, it's so much easier to use than a petrol one because you don't have to worry about starting it. You never have to worry about pull starting it. That saves you so much headache, particularly on hedges where the reach is a problem. So if you've got to climb a ladder to do it or you're on a platform or anything like that, pull starting a petrol hedge trimmer when you're up a ladder or on a platform is really not a safe thing to do.
Dangerous.
It's
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I found that I was quite shocked by the torque in the Ego hedge trimmer.
Yeah.
The pole trimmer. Just like the
Yep.
hedge trimmer itself is really good. It's quite, lightweight depending on the battery
Yeah.
you put on, but the pole trimmer is exceptionally,
We tried out AEG,
Yeah.
and it was pretty decent. Like, it wasn't actually that bad, but we found, I don't know, maybe it cut out a lot, we reckon, and you had to
Yeah.
pull out the battery and put it back and then do it again. So that was kind of
Oh, yeah.
annoying. But
I think it was my faith in Bunnings as well. I love Bunnings. I won't speak bad about them, but
Yep.
I think I trusted the equipment too much, and it just that was a big lesson, was invest in the equipment and you'll get that in return, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I won't say that AEG isn't a good brand for particular use, but just not our use,
I
I guess.
reckon commercial, I reckon probably with their power tools, their hand tools, like the drills and stuff, are probably better commercial. But I reckon from a residential standpoint, they're fantastic for
Small
what you
areas.
need to do, like
Yeah.
the trimmers and the mowers and all that kind of stuff. Apparently, the mowers are really good, but I don't know.
So my brother has bought a lot of AEG power tools, and he actually regrets buying them now. He would probably go Milwaukee or Makita now if he was going to buy power tools. And he said AEG is not bad. It's just it doesn't have that trade quality quite as good as some of the other brands do. And I tested the AEG outdoor power tools a few years ago when they first came out with their, is it 52 volt or 56 volt platform?
I think it's 56. Yeah.
Yeah, when they first came out with that platform, I tested the backpack blower, the mower, and the whippersnipper. And I said, no, thanks, it's not for me.
Yeah.
They did not feel like they were the commercial tools, but they did not feel commercial. They did not feel like they were up to the task.
Have you tested the Ego backpack commercial unit yet?
No. It'd be interesting to test it, but the handheld blower. So you're talking about the backpack blower, new commercial backpack blower.
Yeah.
Yeah, the handheld blower is almost equivalent in specs. The only biggest difference is the amount of battery power you can have connected at one time.
Yeah.
No,
So
yeah, that makes sense.
it makes a lot of sense if you're going to be blowing for an hour at a time because you get an hour runtime out of it, whereas the handheld one, you're down around 25 minutes or somewhere around there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will still use battery powered blowers for anything that's handheld and petrol for backpack blowers at the moment. That's where it's at. The petrol backpack
I saw
blowers
something
are way better. Sorry?
with the Ego. I saw something really cool the other day. It's actually an umbilical to a top saw for arborists, chainsaw,
Yeah.
and a lot of the other ones have the battery on the actual unit, but it makes it a lot
Yes.
lighter in the hand when you've got a backpack.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's pretty affordable. It's like $300 for the skin, and it's not
Yeah.
bad. Like they did time tests against Makita and Milwaukee, Steel, Husky, and there was one more battery, and
Outperformed most of them.
no, well, it was pretty in par with all of them. But the difference is it has a 12-inch bar instead of a 14, which every other one had a 14. But
Okay. Interesting. I'm using the Husqvarna 540T. So that's their top handle chainsaw battery powered one. And I rate that as being a really good top handled arborist saw. And it's got the battery on tool. I'm always going to prefer battery on tool for a chainsaw because I don't like the umbilical cords. But I hear what you're saying about getting the weight off the tool.
Do you find it has good balance?
Yes. Yeah, the 540T, it's really good balance. I've always thought that most of the Husqvarna tools are pretty well balanced. I don't like everything about them, but they're usually pretty well balanced.
Yeah, I think it was a while when we were back when we were thinking about purchasing, we were going to go either Husky or Still for some equipment, and Brains was heading towards the battery gear, but we weren't overly convinced. So I mean, we've heard a lot of great things about Husky gear, and I've tried a few Husky, I guess, pole trimmers and handheld trimmers, but yeah, I just find that Ego tends to be the one that sticks out for us, and it's definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stood up against most of the challenges that we've thrown at it. So.
This is a perfect episode for Ego promotion for Gary now.
Yeah,
this is just.
I started using Husky battery gear back in 2019, 2018 even. And back then, Husky was the leader with battery-powered outdoor power equipment. And now most brands... now most brands will have something that's competitive with Husky or better than Husky. Still has now got a fairly good lineup of battery-powered tools and chainsaws, bits and pieces. They're really looking decent nowadays. But yeah, the current range of commercial Ego tools that I've been using, they are awesome. They're phenomenal in every way.
Yeah, I think
they've really nailed it
with Ego. But in the way of petrol powered, we could go Steel for most of it because it's just. I mean, it's what we know, and it's easy to we've got a good provider and good servicer, so those guys treat us well. So we're pretty happy with where we sit.
That's good. And Still has been, I think, the number one brand in a lot of ways when it comes to petrol-powered outdoor power equipment. So they've got a lot invested in maintaining that position.
Yeah, they do seem quite innovative with a lot of different areas, because
they had a big shortage on batteries, and that was their main issue for a long time. And I think that's what deterred people from using their battery equipment because of their issues with supply. But then I think that's where a lot of Ego and stuff came out of the shell and was like, oh, okay, well, we've got heaps of supply and batteries, and this is where we're going to make our stand, really.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and I think both Husky and Still were really struggling with the supply for batteries going through COVID, and Ego was one of the brands that's like, yeah, we've got batteries. We got tools, we got batteries.
Yeah, probably benefited them quite a bit, especially starting up.
Definitely.
I think the fact that they had the batteries to swap between every single bit of equipment that they had was something that
stood out.
Yeah, stood out. It was new.
Yep, definitely. And I'm a big fan of the higher voltage. I know I've heard people talk smack about that, and high voltage isn't necessarily the best thing, but I'm a big fan of it. The higher voltage and higher current batteries really do deliver a better outcome with every tool.
Mm.
And we've found that, like, even I know that some contractors would say that they overheat a bit in the Ego batteries in some settings, but
I mean, we are in Melbourne, so we can't really say we get any heat.
Yeah, I mean, on our warmer days, like, we've lately got probably a top of like 32 as a hotter day, but they tend to adjust to the conditions quite well in that regard as well. We've done. And it's just storing it and, looking after them, it makes the biggest difference. But
in our Still Esky.
Yeah, we've got a Still Esky that we keep our Ego batteries in.
Nice.
So
look, I've got Husky batteries and Ego batteries beside each other every day, and we've had a few days that are in the mid to high 30s, and the difference between a Husky battery and an Ego battery and the heat is nothing. They both will struggle with overheating in that sort of temperature.
Mm.
And they work pretty well, so don't get me wrong. I'm still a big fan of using battery power in the heat. If you pick up a battery tool and the battery's not overheated, you pick up a battery tool in 38 degrees and you start using it. You pick up a petrol tool, go and grab your FS94R and you try and start that when it's anything over 32 degrees.
Yeah, it does. It spits a bit and struggles to get going, and then once you do get it going, it's just a nightmare to hold.
That's one of our oldest pieces of equipment we've got. We bought that at the get-go. That's done us really well, but
they're a great machine, but because they're so popular, everyone knows what their limits are too.
Yeah, they
pull
do
that
have
spark arrestor out. Yep, get ready to have a vapor lock or an overheating issue.
We've been pretty fortunate, touch wood, that we haven't had any major issues with that sort of gear. But
the major issue we had was just the little plastic inserts at the end of the pole where you switch it and it wears down and then starts falling out the side and the rod comes out and that's it.
So you're talking the multi-tool there, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, we found the locking system in Ego is exceptional compared to the combi system in Still, in the way of how easy it locks in and sort of interchanges. Whereas the Still stuff in the multi-tools tend to wear down a bit. I mean, I think they're under a bit more force, maybe, but we found that's a really. I think the Ego multi-tool really stands out for that reason as well.
Yeah, it's good to know, because I don't think I've had an Ego multi-tool. I have got the Still multi-tool though, and I've got a Husky multi-tool.
Yeah, I found that
it's worth it.
I think it is. It's definitely worth. There's a comparison I made. I sort of figured out because we've got we got the Ego line trimmer in there.
Dedicated
Ego line trimmer, and it's the power feed, and then we've got the multi-tool with a whip snipper head because it came in the pack. And I found that the multi-tool puts out a lot more power than the power feed in the dedicated line trimmer.
Interesting.
So it has a bit more grunt, tends to push through a bit easier.
Yep.
And on a thicker line, it does a bit heavier work. It's not that we put it under much strain, but
we did have a little issue with the dedicated
power feed.
It wouldn't feed it anymore. You click the button, it wouldn't go. So we just returned it, got it out, and it worked. So
Yep. Yeah, they're pretty good with their returns. I have the STX 4500 dedicated whip snipper, so that's got more power than I think you'll find even the multi-tool has.
Yeah, true. Yeah, no, I've been looking at other options, and there's that new sort of commercial line. I've seen Tim using a fair bit, so that's definitely sparked my interest a bit.
Yeah, well, the STX 4500 and the commercial hedge trimmers, they are sensational.
Yeah, it's something we'll probably look into in the next 12 months, I think. Leaning some more into that.
Yeah.
Building out our
Arsenal,
yeah.
Yeah, well, they perform really well. Hey, guys, we're approaching 2 hours worth of recording.
And no motorbike chat.
Do you guys ride motorbikes?
No, unfortunately not.
Yeah, I think he strung you along on that one. I was waiting for him to tell you that we don't have any sort of motorbike experience, and
I'll tell you what, me and Kate get a motorbike license. So me, Kate, and Corey, two of our workers that are doing the arborist course with me we all sort of we're leaning towards getting our motorbike license maybe sometime next year or this year. So
yeah, you should do it, definitely.
we know who to call then.
Coming back onto topic though, like finishing up the podcast, we've got a fairly good idea of what your business looks like, the size of the business, the employees, the turnover, the tools. That's awesome. What do you think you want to do over the next 12 months in terms of goals for the business?
I think we covered one already, which was making the gardening side running on its own without our presence. That's definitely one of them. That's for sure. And we have our really individual goals that we're working on at the moment. Harrison's just joined a business advice agency sort of thing.
Business coaching.
And unfortunately, it's not as madly. But yeah, do you know?
Fair enough.
Yeah, no, it's just it's sort of to achieve that autonomy goal that we're talking about. So the Tradie Success Academy with
they're good.
Yeah, they're meant to be really good. So I've heard a lot of good things about them. So I'll be interested to see how that course goes. I'm quite keen to get stuck into that. That's one big goal for us, is to automate the back end of the business and refine a lot of things, make it a bit more autonomous. Numbers wise, I'd love to double what we did last year. I think we can do it with what we've got, based on we started quite small and we've grown quite a bit. So consistently with what we've grown to, I think we can get that double quite easy.
Yeah, well, if you keep punching out those monthly numbers, I think you're heading the right direction. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to see what we can do. I mean,
I think we've come a long way in 12 months, I reckon.
Yeah, and I mean for you as well, it's adding that new service, Arbory, which
I think that's it just makes sense to do arborists. As I've heard, a lot of contractors add that to their thing. They work alongside them or whatever, but we've found that a lot of customers are like, "Oh, can you cut down that tree?" It's like, no, that's not us. But even then, if we're subbing out to other arbory companies, it's another side of our business that could
generate income.
Yeah, could be for sure.
Smart. So that's sort of my goal. And then I think when it comes to business and I guess improving our staff and all that kind of stuff, I think it's just creating a really enjoyable workplace for our staff and just
building good culture.
Yeah, just building a really good place to be, I guess.
So you need to start by ditching the dirty mow if you want to build a good culture with your staff.
No, I think
help them trust you.
I think it still helps on that one.
Fair enough.
All the boys love it.
Yeah.
Lovely. Oh, look, that is great. I I'm pretty impressed with what you guys have achieved in the last 12 months.
Yeah, thank you.
So, yeah, from me, congratulations. It's awesome. It's good to hear what you've done and where you're at. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you do achieve over this next 12 months. I think that they're very tangible and real goals that you got. So all the best with that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we'd be keen to get on a call in 12 months' time and tell you how we're going.
And I'm actually super keen to go to the next meetup that Ben and BJ host. That would be awesome. Can't miss it.
Yeah, well, I'm interested to see what BJ's been working on in the background there soon. Hopefully there'll be some more news on that.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Can't miss out on the next one. That's for sure.
For sure. That'd be good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you for having us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. It's been fun.
No problem. No, I'm glad to have you. Just stay on the line now.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.